Are scary movies even more scary when they're real?
Well, we've got some ideas on some that might be.
Yes, welcome. This is the Fright Club podcast.
I'm Hope Madden.
And I'm George Wolf, and we're from madwolf.com. And today it is our top five horror documentaries.
That's right.
And who do we thank for this? I forget.
It was Charlie from Burns Pub, who also is a listener, but we know him best from Burns Pub.
Yes. That was a great idea. So we got into this and got some interesting ones to talk about. A couple that we've talked about before, some we haven't, so it should be fun. And speaking of Charlie, he came out. He was one of the many that came out to Fright Club Live.
Thanks to everybody.
Man, it had to have been the best turnout we've had yet.
It was the drunkest turnout we've had.
Well, okay. We like to lead as many categories as we can.
That's right.
It was Fright Club Live this past Wednesday. A bunch of fun, bunch of great horror movie lovers got together to drink a few and to chat each other up and then to go in and see Slither.
That's right. I want to thank the Gateway Film Center for hosting us and our happy hour and our movie and our whole series. And just thanks to everybody who came out. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
I love that movie so much.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Great one to start off with. This was the first one at our new home that we hope is going to be our permanent home. It's off to a great start, and we look forward to number 2, and that will be the August edition, and it will be Compliance.
That's right. So, true crime. We'll look at some true crime horror before that happens.
Yes, very horrific, even more so when you think that it is very much based on a true event, which kind of ties in with today's documentaries. But
before we get ahead,
we do that,
last week, and actually sort of a tie-in with Slither, we talked about the best horror comedies, and a couple of people who showed up for Slither, John Dean, who's Fright Club member number 1, he took issue. He doesn't like American Psycho. He thought that was bad. We disagree with you, but...
Well, no, you know what? I'm not surprised by that because I think that's probably not an unpopular opinion. I think a lot of people may not really put that
in a comedy category.
Or if it's a comedy category, not number 1. I can see that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a point well taken. We do disagree, obviously. But it's a point well taken, and I can see it.
Yeah, and there are got a couple online. Rachel Willis on Twitter, she really wanted to see American Werewolf in London, which we should have at least mentioned.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
We should
and then
have.
Also, actually, in a similar vein, Dog Soldiers came up on Twitter.
Interesting.
Which, you know what? I mean, it is funny. I wouldn't think of it as a horror comedy because it's so scary, but it's funny. It is funny.
Yeah, it is.
So a couple of good ideas that we left off.
I don't really. I can't believe we left off American Werewolf in London, especially.
Yeah, that was just
often as we yell to each other, "Enough!" We do that. No matter what comes up, we'll just yell at each other, "Enough!" I said, "Enough!" When he's talking to him outside the slaughtered lamb.
The slaughtered lamb. We do love that movie.
Yeah,
I love that movie.
It's a bunch of fun, as all those were. So yeah, apologies for leaving that off. I don't know how we left that one off, but
sheer idiocy.
Yeah, a naked American man just stole my balloon. That's all we're going to do on this episode is just quote American Werewolf in London. That's to make up for
but actually,
leaving it off. So sorry about that.
You and your bad British accent make me think of, we got a couple of good episodes coming up soon. Next week, I'm really excited about this one. Melissa Starker is going to join us, and we're going to do the 5 best feminist horror movies.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
It is. I'm excited to do that one, and I'm excited that she's going to join us. And then the week after that, our friend and sort of boss, Craig Hunter from ScreenRelish.com, which is based in London, if you're not aware. Craig is going to join us, and we're going to count down the best British horror movies, and we're very geeked about that.
So he can look forward to many samples of my bad British accent.
Exactly.
Just like Corey did with my bad Australian accent. Jokes about this is a knife. I'll try to curb it. I really will.
See what you can do.
But those are going to be good, especially I'm looking forward to the feminist episode, not only to probably learn some things, to hear the thoughts from you two, but I don't think that's really talked about much.
No, you know what? I think you're right. I think horror gets a bad rap for being the opposite of feminist.
Well, it often is.
Yeah, no, it absolutely often is. But there's been a lot in the last, not only, a lot in the last few years, but for a while, you can pick out films that are full on feminist ideas, not just like they don't hate women. They're not just, these are the not misogynist movies you can choose, but have a real strong feminist thread to them, and I'm excited to talk about that.
Good, yeah, looking forward to that. So that's the next couple of weeks, and then we get into August, our next episode of Fright Club Live Compliance. So a lot coming down the pike, and man, we thank you as always for the incredible response to this podcast, which kind of got the ball rolling on all of this. So we'll just dive into our top 5 documentary horror movies. Again, thanks to Charlie for the idea. It's a good one. And we'll start with one that we've talked about on a few occasions because we talked so much about the movie that it is about, and that's from 2012. It's Room 237.
My interpretation of The Shining is that there's many levels to this film, and this deeper story has its birth, I guess, in the idea that Stanley Kubrick was involved with faking the Apollo moon landings.
So I think this is the reason we like this movie. It's a movie that celebrates nerds who are nerds about The Shining, and we clearly are that.
Not only that, it really celebrates a lot of things. It also dives into film criticism.
It does.
Which of course, we do, and the different ways films can be picked apart, sometimes in a wrong-headed nature, and nerds and people that just go crazy conspiracy theories.
Oh, yeah.
You know, not just about movies, but about anything.
Oh, just the stuff that they can pick out and run with. It's the most fascinating movie to watch. And it introduced me to a new word or a phrase, which is always good in documentaries. It teaches something. Kubrickian scholars. I didn't know that was a phrase.
Kubrickian scholars.
That's right. But I mean, that's the thing about Stanley Kubrick is that all of his movies just really promote obsession. You obsess over why did he choose to do that right there. It's got to mean something.
Right.
And you know, and I think most of the time when people spend a lot of time on it, it's one of his more well-respected, it's 2001 or, you know, but I love that this is about The Shining. I love it. And one of the things I love is all the little weird things you didn't notice that they actually point out. Like, as we've said before, that Mr. Torrance was waiting while he's waiting for his interview, he's just thumbing through a Playgirl magazine that then he just tosses back on
there in the lobby.
end table in the lobby for anybody to come. I mean,
that's
my God, that's hilarious and
little
bizarre.
Things. Yeah, but it dives into not only the general fanaticism around The Shining, but these. How many? 4? Does he focus on four specific?
4 very specific. There are like sort of, you know, passing references to a lot more, but he really gets deep into 4 specific, fairly lunatic theories about.
Yeah. And then it gets into them, and then the evidence, quote unquote evidence. I'm making the air quotes, the Chris Farley evidence, air quotes. That the people have to back up their theories, all these scenes in the movie, and this is what he really meant, and look at this, and that, and this. And one has to do with faking the moon landing.
Yeah.
One has to do with the plight of the American Indians. Oh, yeah. It's really strange your believability when you just have to listen to this, and they are just so dead serious.
They are. And, you know, it's funny, Rodney Asher is the director, and I don't think that he's not mocking them. It's not, you know, he's not fully believing them either. He's just open. He's asking us to be just open, just listen. And at the same time, like, you know, it's not so much that you're watching it so in case you come across a theory that you buy, you're watching it just sort of to revel in film criticism, just discussion about film in the way people would discuss any other art. Yeah,
I don't think he's mocking them at all because that would be the totally wrong way to go. But you know, excuse me if when I'm listening to some of these, I just think you're nuts. You know, maybe that's on me. But so you have a little bit of fun, though, with these theories. But also, if you are a big fan of The Shining, and if you're not, why not? You really do. You just get to dive into it in such a meaty way with all the little tidbits, like you mentioned, that we didn't know, little trivia bits, but also how he sets up shots and what's in the background that has to be, you know, on purpose. And a director like Kubrick, of course, everything is on purpose. And that's almost really what was more fascinating to me, is just to dive into a movie like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, there are a lot of documentaries that are about horror films, usually in a sort of a compilation sense, and we didn't want to include all of them, but a couple that I really like, one in particular, Nightmares in Red, White, and Blue, looks at the history of American horror, and it's narrated by Lance Henriksen, which is probably why I like it so well.
Yeah, yeah.
I love him. But it's, you know, it's fun, it's interesting, it's got a lot of great, Wes Craven is John Carpenter. They talk to a lot of really great American horror movie filmmakers, and it's just interesting. And another one very much like it, Going to Pieces, which is specifically about the rise and fall of the slasher film. The movie sort of suggests that the slasher film is over, which I don't think is true, but it's a very popular subgenre for a lot of people, really, and so I think it's just an interesting movie to watch. Not scary at all, just sort of one of those picks them apart, nerdy movies. I like those.
Yeah. Well, that this one, Room 237, is not scary.
No.
Obviously,
No.
it's not. So
No.
it's on this list, not because it's scary, but just because it focuses on a horror movie and does such a great job of doing it. Now, some that we'll get into here in a few minutes are a lot more scary, but this one, even though it's not scary, it's very highly recommended.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The next one is pretty scary, actually.
Yeah, it certainly has scary elements to it, and that is number 4 on our list. And actually the same year, I didn't realize that, the same year as Room 237, that is 2012, My Amityville Horror.
I didn't want to be the Amityville horror kid. I've been running away from it, and it finally caught up to me.
They got very deep with something dark and something evil that they totally didn't understand.
Satanic history, devil worship, mind control. I was possessed by a spirit that I could not get rid of on my own.
Maybe this is just manifestations. Maybe you imagined all of this.
I just wanted somebody to believe me.
Show me the evidence.
What took place in that house was a true personification of evil.
This is just a fascinating movie. You know, and I wouldn't have thought that it could be, because the Amityville Horror has just been beaten to death.
It really has. And I remember seeing this when it came out, seeing it in the theater. And one of the things that struck me, I guess over the intervening years between the last of the Amityville Horrors and this movie, maybe I fell into believing an urban legend. I thought I was under the mistaken impression that years ago, the Lutzes had gone on TV and admitted that the whole thing was a hoax. I don't know how I got that, if that's out there as an urban legend and I bought into it, but I remember thinking that. So I was surprised at the time by this entire movie, that this guy who was involved not only is still telling the tale,
right,
but he's obviously deeply troubled.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with it, it's a documentary specifically about Daniel Lutz, who is the oldest of the kids in the Lutz family. Of course, the Lutzes move into High Hopes is actually the name of the house in Long Island, where a man had killed his whole family, and they move in and they live there less than a month. They leave their belongings behind, claiming that they were tormented by spirits, basically.
So it became the movie with James Brolin and his hair.
There are a total of 12.
Are you serious?
Amityville Horror movies, remakes, documentaries, reboots.
Man.
12.
Wow.
I know.
So, that's the original family, and he was the son, and
Daniel was the oldest of the 3 kids who lived there.
So it dives into his story, the story of how people seeked to debunk the story, and how he then kind of fought back against that, how the whole thing has affected him. And not only is it has scary elements when it gets into the fact that he is still saying that these things happen, but also it's sad.
It's very sad.
It's very sad of the toll it has taken on him as a person.
And the thing is, he's just kind of a mesmerizing character.
Yeah.
You just cannot take your eyes. He's so intense, and he's so honest when he's telling you these stories, although he will not take a lie detector test.
Yeah.
But it's like he is truly convinced himself, but the more he talks about it, he clearly hated his stepfather, George Lutz.
Right.
There are a lot of issues there, and the more you listen to him, and he's got a very childlike sort of presence, you just get the feeling, although this is never stated in the movie, you get the feeling that this is just a coping mechanism that a boy created in his mind to deal with abuse. They don't ever state it specifically, but you come away thinking something awful happened in that house, and I don't know if it was supernatural at all.
And it's also, to me, in watching him on screen, it goes back and forth between, like you said, a gentle type of soul, and then other times even question the authenticity of what he's saying. Just for a second, you almost expect him to get violent.
Oh, yeah.
And so you have, on one hand, this very, very, gentle, to use that word again, and then just very, very...
you just see a flash of it.
A flash of it, and at the thought that you are telling him that he's not being truthful.
Right. It's directed by a guy named Eric Walter, who's a self-proclaimed Amityville fanatic, who, long before he ever made this movie, maintained a database-style website with just, scores and scores of news articles and pieces of information about the Amityville Horror, true or not. And so I think that at first blush, you sort of expect it to be something that really perpetuates the story. And it really, the strength of the movie is that it's a character study of this one man and how everything affected his life. And it's very moving.
Yeah, which in so many instances, that's how a movie scores. When you take a story like this and make it personal and make it tied into this one person, and very, very much so. That's what makes it a successful movie. Although it does have the little offshoots of diving into the particulars of the claim about the supernatural. But no,
they talk to a lot of psychics and people like that who are absolutely certain that it's true and whatever. Hell is the gateway to hell is in the basement. I don't know if they say that, but they say it in the movies.
Yeah. But no, it definitely works because of the character study, and also because after a while you start to see the parallels between not just this story, but think about any story, any trauma that anyone has ever been through, and have somebody doubt their claims. No, I want to see proof.
Right.
I want to see, and then you think to yourself, how would that just tear you apart?
Yeah.
And so it has those sort of parallels between other types of headlines, sad headlines that you might see. But it in the end, it's just, as you said, it's very compelling because of this sad story of this guy.
You know what? Actually, there are two other movies that to me are sort of similar to this in that way. That they're they shed light on truth, but is it really true? It really happened, but did we get the whole story in the most fascinating imaginable way? And one of them, which I know you love, which is also from 2012, The Imposter.
That was from 2012 as well.
It was a big year for documentaries, man.
Yeah, The Imposter, I cannot recommend that enough. Not scary, but if you just like...
But it's a true crime.
It's a true crime.
And there's murder, there's crazy, but it's insane.
It is insane. That is a movie, I would recommend going into it. Don't Google it. Don't know anything about the story. I swear, I spent most of that movie just watching it with my jaw on the floor.
Well, it's funny. So we watched it at home. George got a screener. He was going to review it, and I was not going to watch it because I had other things to do, and I was incapable of leaving the room. I couldn't leave the room. It's fascinating.
It's not a quote unquote horror, but if you're interested, please check it out. The Imposter. I will be shocked if you don't love it. Anyway,
and then the other one that this reminded me of, which is from 2003, a lot of people are familiar with, is Capturing the Freedmans.
Oh yeah,
which tells a story. A lot of it is from the point of view of a man who, as an adult, is a clown. That's what he does for a living. He's a clown, which makes the movie that much sort of weirder.
It does,
and it tells a story how his father and his brother were arrested and imprisoned for they were convicted of mass pedophilia during a computer class. They taught a computer class, and it's the most off-putting, weird movie. It's so intimate, and it's all of this footage. They filmed all kinds of weird stuff, just family stuff, just regular family stuff.
Yeah.
And then the whole time you're like, now, you don't know. Am I supposed to believe that they did not do it?
Right.
Because they just are, as a family, not thinking anybody else is watching them. They're just filming it from this. They're an unusual family, but they're very loving. You would never expect anything they're definitely odd. But then the film is very open with evidence that, the dad did collect child pornography, and the dad did claim to have molested his own brother as a child, and all this stuff. It's the most just unsettling movie. It's so odd. It's so well put together. And it's not scary. It's sad. It's weird. But it's memorable. I'll give it that.
And you have watching this home video footage that they filmed. You have to stop and ask yourself, well, what if you almost forget that footage was not taken for this movie?
Right.
It's like, if not, why are you taking this?
Right.
It's really weird. It's awful compelling in a can't look away sort of way. So those two kind of fall under the same umbrella as my Amityville Horror. Those types of very personal stories with incredible historic events, which you can choose to believe or not.
Right, exactly.
But whether you believe it or not, that doesn't stop the fact that the movies are well worth seeing.
Yeah.
So that was number 4, my Amityville Horror, and number 3 is one I think a little less known. Back in 2009, it's called Cropsey.
It's scary because we have a boogeyman living on Staten Island all those years.
That image forced a lot of people to say, that is the killer.
It's sort of like putting a puzzle together.
He likes to be the center of attention, the keeper of the secrets.
So I think it'd be great if you could speak for your...
What if we just do audio?
Safety, I will not go on.
Do you think they're all around us?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I think he's possessed. I really think that he is demonized and possessed.
Now this one is scary, actually.
Yeah.
This one, it's an investigation of an urban legend that came true. And the filmmakers, Barbara, forgive me, Barbara, if I'm going to screw this up, Brancaccio, I hope?
Sure.
Right.
Let's go with that.
And Joshua Zeman. Thank you, Joshua, for having a more pronounceable last name. They grew up in Staten Island, where and it's funny. There's an old Friday the 13th style ripoff movie that the Weinsteins wrote and directed years ago called The Burning, and the bad guy, the Jason, right, the bad guy in this camp is named Cropsey because that's just the boogeyman name in certain areas of New York City. And including apparently Staten Island, that was the name of this, just everybody's sort of camp scary boogeyman was named Cropsey. And so then there came a time period where, and the story was usually that he was an escaped mental patient and he kidnapped children and he took them to the woods and he killed them. But then eventually that actually happened. And the film just leads you to, and it's just very effective in the way that it sort of suggests, all of these are rooted in some kind of reality. And it just makes you feel like everything that scared you on vacation or at camp or, just when you were a kid, they do a really good job of putting it together. But it is a very compelling and scary, creepy story.
Yeah, it is. And then also it becomes a bit of a character study when they arrest the guy. And he and the kind of person he turned, very slow.
Yeah.
Not much intelligence. And is he being taken advantage of? Is he being, railroaded into someone they want him to be?
Right.
And he cannot defend himself mentally.
Yeah.
That's sad about it, but it doesn't really draw judgments.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's more interested in exploring, I think, the root of the urban legend.
Yeah.
And and actually, in doing that, it reminds you of, and I could not get a copy of the movie Titicut Follies, but that's what it reminds you of. It's a famous 1967 documentary of Massachusetts Asylum. It was shot inside a Massachusetts asylum, and it's apparently just horrific. And this film, Cropsey, shows footage from inside an asylum that was eventually closed down and is like the source of a lot of the urban legend that it's in from this asylum. All these people came out,
right?
And those scenes in this movie are graphic and horrifying. But then I think you think of it again when he is being, I'm not going to say railroaded because you don't know whether he did it or didn't do it, but it's just a way of looking at how the system still hasn't really figured out the best way to be fair with people who have handicaps, mental handicaps.
Right. Yeah, I think that's definitely a fair way to put it, because you're not sure, is he getting a fair defense? He obviously cannot defend himself. He doesn't have the mental capacity to do that.
Right.
So is he been, surrounded, or has he been associated with people who have his best interests at heart?
Right.
Or,
no, probably not.
Right. Or are they feeding this?
Because they want to have somebody.
Yes.
They want someone to pin this on.
Exactly.
And the filmmaker, actually, just one of the filmmakers, Joshua Zeman, went on to make another movie called Killer Legends, which is like episodic. It's 4 or 5 different urban legends that they investigate. And you know what? It's got some moments to it, but it's not particularly good, to tell you the truth. The one that this reminds me of is actually the whole series of films about the Memphis 3, Memphis 3.
Yeah.
So you've got the 3-part Paradise Lost, and then also a film called West of Memphis. So there are 4 documentaries about the 3 teenage boys in West Memphis who were convicted of mutilating and killing 3 8-year-old boys, one of the convicts was borderline mentally handicapped.
Right.
And basically they were just 3 nonconformist kids who stuck out.
Goth kids.
Goth kids. And
they fit the mold. Yeah.
And the thing is that, the small rural area turned this into Satanism, right? Yeah. And one of the reasons, and I know that you know this, one of the reasons that I've always found this entire thing so fascinating is that in the original trial, the expert witness, thank you. The expert witness is named Dale Griffiths, is the sheriff of Tiffin, Ohio. I'm from Tiffin, Ohio. He's our sheriff. He was my sheriff growing up, Dale Griffiths, and he was on 2020, he was on Geraldo Rivera, 60 Minutes, all the time in the 80s and 90s, talking about how basically the cornfields of Ohio are hotbeds of Satanism.
Sure.
It's a weird way to grow up that, and the thing is, I dress like that, right? I wore black concert t-shirts, I wore black nail polish, it's like, And people would look at you like, maybe. And then, of course, and it's funny because I was just saying this yesterday. I had a poster in my room from the video Eyes Without a Face, right? Billy Idol wearing leather, crucifixes on, he's on his knees in this big circle of candles. My parents were like, yeah, I think Hope is probably okay. Like, it's like you couldn't possibly take it seriously, But in the film, you can see where he really would whip up a frenzy, and people ran with it. And these three boys went to prison for like 18 years.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's also very similar to the themes explored in Cropsey, because when people get whipped up by a frenzy, it is. It's like a wildfire.
Yep,
and that happens in so many different walks of life, especially now with the internet. My Lord, you get an internet fire going. Forget about it. But so those three are under the same themes as Cropsey. The Titicut Follies, which you couldn't find.
No, I couldn't.
West of Memphis, the trilogy, and then Killer Legends. Because number 3 in our top documentaries was Cropsey, and number 2, and this one actually would probably be number 1 if we were going by quality of film, because it's such a great movie.
You know what? It might be the best documentary I've ever seen.
It's one of the best, and it's from 2012 again. Wow.
I know, big year.
Called The Act of Killing. There really aren't too many words to adequately describe this movie. You just have to see it. It's an incredible achievement. Not only the fact of what this director was able to do, the access he was able to get, but then how he presents it, the visuals in acting out these horrific events. And it all has to do with finding and interviewing a warlord and getting him to act out and feed into his fascination with Western movies and act out some of these horrific acts of mass genocide in Indonesia that he and his lieutenants took part in. And it's gripping, it's exhilarating, it's ghastly, it's surreal, it's incredible. It's just incredible. And somehow it didn't win the Oscar. It was nominated that year for Best Documentary Oscar. It lost to 20 Feet from Stardom, which I enjoyed very much, but not even in the same. This is like nothing you have ever seen.
It absolutely is. It is like nothing you have ever seen. And what's fascinating is well, you know what? Everything about it is fascinating. The culture of Indonesia as he was there with the warlords who are still, prominent, and sort of the overarching, still current belief that they did the right thing in this genocide. And, some of the people that are involved are just such weird characters, and the way that they recreate these scenes as if they're as if they are big, Hollywood movie scenes. You can see how the way that the perpetrators view it and the way that the rest of the citizenship view it are wildly different. I mean, it's just simply unlike any other movie ever made.
Yeah, the director is Joshua Oppenheimer, and many people on the crew are listed at the end as anonymous.
That's right.
Because there is real fear and real danger of reprisals from this, and what he was able to pull off in getting the death squad leaders to reenact their mass killings in whichever cinematic genres that they wish. And then when you see the kinds of Western movies that they're fascinated with, and their glee at being able to do this, the main leader, Anwar, is a fascinating figure, especially as you see the toll it starts taking on him as the film goes on. You can definitely see he has some real deep feelings about understanding maybe a little bit better what he has done.
Yeah.
Now, his top lieutenant there, I don't know what his name was. He is just gleeful about it, and I think he's the one that says war crimes are decided by the victors.
Yep.
Which is just chilling.
Yeah.
It's like there is nothing in his mind that says he committed any war crimes, and it's just an incredible movie. We're trying to describe it, but trust us, if you haven't seen it, when you see it, you will know. I couldn't describe this to anybody.
No.
Some of the visuals, how they make them play out. And now, actually, he's got a follow-up coming out very soon. It's called The Look of Silence, and that's about a family that survives the genocide, confronts the men who killed one of their brothers. And we actually just found out we're going to get to see this here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So very, very excited to see that, because if this first one was any indication, it's going to be just gripping. So not scary in the traditional sense, but just ghastly and horrific in a can't look away. As you said, surreal is a great word to describe it. From 2012. Please look it up if you haven't seen it. And that's The Act of Killing. And we only had it at number 2 because number 1 in our list is definitely scary. In fact, one of the scariest movies we may have ever seen in terms of the effect that it has on you after you're done watching it. And that is from just this year, and it's called The Nightmare.
I began hearing voices and screams and crying. I would hear all the sounds of hell. And that is when the shadow man would come.
And he would walk disjointed. It's a kind of horror that is worse than like in the movies.
You are going to die.
And this is from Rodney Asher again, the guy who directed Room 237.
Right.
So, and he's got a very quirky, idiosyncratic style. But again, he just asks you. He clearly is very open to. He hasn't made up his mind. He's very open to the information that he's sort of pulling in, and he's kind of asking you to do the same thing. But basically, what it comes down to is it's a documentary about sleep paralysis, which I did not know much about.
I didn't either.
And the way he lays it out is pretty brilliant. And eventually, you're already watching, and then they drop the ball on you that it kind of might be contagious.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're like, fuck.
Yeah. Because it talks to people that are have experienced, and continue to experience sleep paralysis, which, by the way, if you don't know much about it, just sounds horrific.
Oh,
to
my God.
Some of these people that have to deal with this. And then it acts out some of the nightmares that they have on a continuing basis. And then, as you said, then somebody drops the bomb like, oh, I didn't ever have this until I heard about it.
Right,
and
my
you're
girlfriend.
Like, what?
My girlfriend told me about it, and just like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And which is, what it comes down to for me. If a horror film's main goal, I think, is to scare you when you go to bed. Like when you're in bed, you're afraid, and I was afraid to go to bed.
Yes.
I thought, if I have this, I will kill someone.
Exactly right. You just stare at the ceiling, going, do I dare?
That's right.
Do I dare? Because if they've given me this, if I catch this, sort of an It Follows type of thing through watching this movie, it does. It gets under your skin. Now, some of the recreations are not the greatest.
No.
But they're effective. And it's really a no-frills documentary. It just goes from one person to the other, just with interviews. And then
but they're so sympathetic.
They are.
Your heart breaks for them. And they seem to all be in like a different sort of mental space. There's one guy, he has it every day. He's had it every day for years. And he's just nuts.
Yeah.
He's just nuts.
How do you cope?
Oh, and then there's another one, another man, and he's so tender, and he says, he sometimes can go for a couple of months without it, but then if he talks about it, then it comes back, and you're like, watch him going,
talk about it.
But you're on this movie. Oh my God, what have you done to yourself?
I know. Well, because I suppose you could see that it would be therapeutic for them to talk about it.
I don't know.
Some of them have they talk about how the ways that they've reached out to try to get help, and it hasn't improved the situation, and it really is. It's number one on this list just because of the effect it has on you after you're done watching it. You will not forget it, trust me. And it does have, even though they're not the greatest effects in the movie, there are some scary images.
Oh, there are.
For sure.
Yeah, there are.
So that's why it's at the top of this list, just from this year. So still maybe out there in theaters, or I know it was here for a while. But yeah, interesting. It's from the same director as Room 237. So he bookends the list here. At number 1 is The Nightmare. Check that out. But be warned.
That's right.
I mean, if you
check it out or don't.
Yeah, check it out or don't, because truly, it is scary, and by far the scariest one on this list. Our top 5 horror documentaries. Again, thanks to Charlie for the tip. It was a good idea, and we'll look forward to the next couple of weeks once again.
Yeah, we're going to have Melissa Starker, senior feminist correspondent Melissa Starker, on next week so that we can talk about the best. I'm excited about this. And the best feminist horror movies. And then the following week, our old buddy Craig,
senior British correspondent.
That's right. And we're going to talk about the best British horror. So that they should both be great. I'm excited for both of those.
Very excited for those. And the next, as we said, the next Fright Club Live is happening the second weekend of...
Second Wednesday.
Second Wednesday
of every month. So it'll be the second Wednesday of August. It's going to be 6:30 for a happy hour, 8 o'clock. We're going to watch Compliance.
Yeah, we took advantage of that happy hour, didn't we?
We did.
Woo! That's the way to do it, though. That's the way to do it. So check us out, as always. Keep this conversation going. If there's some documentaries that we missed, like we missed American Werewolf in London, that we should have talked about, please let us know. Twitter is an easy way. We're at MaddWolf, MaddWolf. Also, maddwolf.com is the website, and Mad Wolf Columbus on Facebook. So plenty of ways, and we love to keep it going.
Yeah, you can also get in touch with us at goldenspiralmedia.com, which is the lovely people who host this podcast. Just leave us a message right there on the website.
Yeah, give us your thoughts. And until next week, I'm George Wolf.
I'm Hope Madden.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast.
Stay frightful, my friends.